Okay, thank you. Can you guys, can you hear me okay? Okay. So I guess, I'm not sure exactly. If you have any questions, later on, you can definitely ask me. But I was gonna kind of just give you some general nutrition information, and also, from a Chinese medicine point of view, how we treat colds and flus, viruses, and kind of at-home remedies and herbs that you can use to help support your immune system during this time period. So I did make a PowerPoint, so I'm going to try to share it first. So this is kind of, so nutrition, food, and TCM remedies to optimize immune response and prevent the cytokine storm. So basically, the reason why I have a picture of the little tangerines here is because tangerines, oranges, and a lot of the citrus fruits, those are actually one of the groups of foods that is really helpful to help the immune system. And so I just thought I'd put a picture of it there. Citrus foods are very high in certain flavonoids, and flavonoids are food compounds that actually are really important for the immune system. So, and we'll talk about that more later. So I don't want to get too technical here, but hopefully you guys can understand what I'm talking about. And then I'll also talk about the cytokine storm and what that means as well. So the TCM approach to viruses and other pathogenic diseases. So in Chinese medicine, there's it's about 2,000 to 3,000 years old. It's a classical text called the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Medicine. And it states that in those who contract febrile pathogenic diseases that show up in the winter, quote, only those who have safeguarded their vital essence can avoid, unquote, contracting more severe symptoms. So what that means is that the emphasis of Chinese medicine is not necessarily to kill the virus itself, right? Because there is no vaccine for the virus. We don't have an immediate cure for the virus, but by protecting your own body and strengthening your own immune system, you can help to facilitate the virus or the pathogen to exit from the body on its own. So that's really what we focus on with Chinese medicine. And so that's the same thing with nutrition is, if you eating a healthy diet, you're getting all the nutrients that you need, then your body you can actually help your body to ward off, viruses or anything pathogenic that gets into the body. So I kind of put this picture of the soil and the foundation of nutrition, this picture here, just because it kind of reminds me of how it's kind of like when you're gardening, you're growing vegetables in your garden, you got to build a healthy soil environment, healthy bacterial environment in the soil. You have to add compost. You have to, if you take good care of the soil, then the plants can actually grow into healthy plants, and they can resist powdery mildew. They can resist, bugs better. So by improving your nutrition and also your just your overall health, you can actually help your body to be able to kind of turn on the immune system when needed, and help to prevent the inflammatory response that can also often happen with a COVID. So what is the cytokine storm? I don't know if any of you have heard of this term, but it's basically, it's when your body has an excessive inflammatory response to the, to the virus. And so some patients, they found that who end up contracting the COVID, when it becomes more severe, it's because their body their immune system overreacts. And so it can cause this, the neutrophils to fill up the lungs, which then can make the fluid fill up the lungs and then make it very hard to breathe, right? So their body's not getting any oxygen. And ultimately, it can cause acute respiratory distress syndrome, where basically you can't breathe, you're not getting any oxygen into the body. And so that ultimately, if it becomes even more severe, then that can lead to death, or just really, or blood. Some people have been getting blood clots as well, like cardiovascular issues as well. Okay. So the important thing to remember is that there are things that we can do to help strengthen your immune system. And one of them is by improving the overall environment in the gut, because your gut, 70 to 80% of the immune system lives in the gut. So one of the things that you can do is having a high fiber diet. So for example, they found, they did research on mice, and they found that mice who had contracted the flu, when they were given a high fiber diet, they were actually able to get, had improved their lung function, whereas mice who were fed a low fiber diet had more damage to their lung tissue and they died faster. So when you heal the gut and you improve the overall bacterial environment inside the gut, right? Because the bacteria in your gut, they interact with your immune system, and you actually have more bacteria in your body than you have cells. So that's how important the bacterial environment is in your body, and especially in the gut. So there's prebiotic foods, which help to, they kind of like, they're foods, but they're not bacteria, they don't have bacteria in themselves, but they help to feed the good bacteria in the gut. And those include things like dandelion greens, garlic, onions, leeks, asparagus, apples, all these foods that help to feed the bacteria in the gut. And so now I would say for some people who have like bacterial overgrowth or certain gut issues, sometimes some of these foods can aggravate their gut issues. So you kind of have to be careful when you're taking prebiotics. But overall, these are beneficial foods for most people. And of course, there's probiotic or fermented foods. So things like sauerkraut, kimchi, miso, tempeh, kefir, yogurt. These are probiotic foods that help to improve the overall gut environment and help with your immune system. Okay, so next is so basically the American Nutrition Association, they had a panel of research. They kind of looked over all the research regarding nutrient compounds and their impact on the immune system, and so they came up with a general set of guidelines. And so some of these guidelines are I'm going to talk about today. So there's different ways that you can help to your immune system. So one is by eating certain foods that can reduce the overall inflammation in the body, so they can inhibit the inflammatory cytokines. Another way is by working on the viral enzymes. So there's certain food that actually target the enzymes that these viruses rely on to replicate themselves and infect the cells. And then the third way is also by helping to modulate the immune system, by strengthening your immune system or protecting. So that's, for example, like vitamin C, vitamin A, antioxidants that help protect your tissues from oxidative damage. So the first one we're going to look over are the nutrient compounds that reduce the inflammatory cytokines. And these three foods are curcumin, so that's found in turmeric, bergamot, that's actually like, it comes from the citrus, it's like a citrus plant, and flavonoids. So those are the three cytokine inhibiting food groups. And so curcumin, they found that it was actually able to reduce the cytokine release during the cytokine storm that happened during the Ebola outbreak. So that's why that's one of the food that they found that can decrease the cytokine storm. Another one is the bergamot. So a lot of times actually they actually sell the supplement bergamot, and a lot of times, for example, Orthomolecular Products, which is a company that I use to purchase some of my supplements, they actually use bergamot to help cardiovascular function in patients, because it actually can help with reducing LDL cholesterol, maintain healthy LDL cholesterol levels, and it maintains a normal inflammatory balance in the body. So bergamot is a big anti-inflammatory food supplement, and it also helps to reduce lung inflammation. The last thing is the flavonoids. So flavonoids, they're a group of phytonutrients that you find in a lot of like fruits and vegetables actually. So there's so many different types of flavonoid compounds. So, and we'll talk more about that later, but certain flavonoid foods are particularly good at reducing the inflammatory cytokines. So that's the citrus fruits, berries, green tea, legumes, and red wine. The reason why I put parentheses around red wine is because even though it has a lot of flavonoids in it, but it's also alcohol. So you don't want to overdo the alcohol, because the alcohol itself can actually, is not so good for your immune system, drinking too much alcohol. But in moderation, it's good. Okay, so we're going to the next one. Okay, so the impact of food and nutrients on immune function. So basically, there's also certain nutrient compounds that actually target the enzymes that the viruses depend on to replicate themselves and enter into the cells. So there's certain flavonoid compounds that act on it's a particular enzyme of the coronavirus. It's called this 3-chymotrypsin-like protease, so that's abbreviated 3-CL-Pro enzyme. And these foods are spinach, cabbage, dill, fennel leaf, onion, oregano, chili pepper, olives, turmeric, citrus fruit, and green teas. So kind of a wide range of things. And I guess I don't know if you guys, I think they're going to record it anyways, right? So if people can't catch everything, they can always look at the recording later on. And then there's also certain herbs and other components of foods that help to target the viral enzymes. So there's 2 herbs in particular that they focused on, and one is the tuanqinlian, that's called andrographis, and another is the skullcap root, that's called huangqin in Chinese medicine. Huangqin is a very commonly used herb in Chinese medicine, and we use it all the time. So that one, from Chinese medicine viewpoint, it helps get rid of damp heat in the body. And when we talk about damp heat, that means, like, for example, when you have a really bad cough or lung infection, you have a lot of yellow-green mucus, that's that damp heat. If you have a really greasy, oily tongue coating, that's also, like, greasy yellow tongue coating, that's also considered damp heat. So we use that particular herb a lot for damp heat toxic conditions in the body. Hesperidin is actually also one of the bioflavonoids. And so it has really strong antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. And it's primarily found in citrus fruits. So oranges, grapefruit, lemon, tangerines, those are all rich in hesperidin. And then the next one is glutathione. So glutathione is, like, a lot of times naturopathic doctors will recommend that their patients take the glutathione supplement because it helps with detoxification. So in general, it's just kind of an overall anti-aging, like, great for your overall health type of nutrient component. And you find it in a lot of foods, actually. So just by eating a wide range of fruits and vegetables, really you can get glutathione in your diet. Glutathione is basically anti-inflammatory, anti-aging, antioxidant. It's just overall good for your health. And it's almost like the trash clearing nutrient in your body, so it helps to kind of aid in detoxification. They also found that people who took glutathione for a period of time, like a higher dosage of glutathione, that their skin looked better as well. And so you find it in the foods that I listed here: asparagus, avocado, cruciferous vegetables, tomatoes, cucumbers, almonds, walnuts. And there's also, like, precursor foods to glutathione as well. So even though they don't contain glutathione themselves, but they will become glutathione in the body. And that's whey protein, the allium family, which are things like garlic, scallions, onions. That's the allium family. Those sulfur-containing foods. The cruciferous vegetables, which are like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, kale. Those are all cruciferous vegetables. Selenium-rich foods also are important. You find them a lot in seafood, oysters. Brazil nuts especially are high in selenium. Selenium is an antioxidant, which is also important for your thyroid function as well. So sometimes patients who are hypothyroid, it's important for them to have selenium in their diet. Alpha-lipoic acid, organ meats, beef, broccoli, peas, tomatoes. There's also lutein, which is like the yellow colored pigment in a lot of dark green leafy veggies that you find. So pretty much if you eat kale and spinach regularly, you're almost guaranteed to get the lutein, you get the flavonoid compounds, you get a lot of the vitamins other nutrients that are really important for immune function. Egg yolk, vitamin C is important. Vitamin C actually helps to increase the white blood cells, so to fight infection. So basically, some doctors are actually, during this COVID time period, they actually are giving intravenous vitamin C because they find that it can help to decrease the cytokine reaction also in the body. And basically, they're actually conducting clinical trials now regarding vitamin C to see how it if it can work against the cytokine storm. Vitamin B2, Viola diffusa is actually it's like an herbal supplement, so you can actually purchase it online, but that has also been known to target the enzymes that are associated with the COVID virus. And so other foods, oil of oregano is effective against the respiratory viruses. Quercetin is also very important. So the lab and animal studies have shown that the quercetin can actually inhibit a wide variety of viruses, including the COVID virus. And it has also been shown to have antioxidant function, and particularly protective of the lung. So it can actually help to protect the lung tissues. And so there's a lot of vegetables and food that are high in quercetin, and that includes the leafy green veggies, broccoli, red onion, peppers, apples, grapes, black tea, green tea, red wine. And oftentimes it's combined with bromelain or vitamin C to improve the absorption. Vitamin A. So vitamin A is really important for supporting healthy mucosa, and particularly with the lungs, it helps to protect the lung mucosa. And these are the food sources. I've kind of just listed them here. Okay. And so these are, the following are just some immune modulating nutrients and compounds with general antiviral properties. So we talked about vitamin C. It helps increase your white blood cells, fight infection against the cytokine storm. A lot of vegetables and fruits have the vitamin C. Vitamin D, which you get from sunlight and oily fish, for example, it helps to reduce the risk of acute respiratory infection. Particularly in people who are deficient in vitamin D, or elderly people, when they supplemented with vitamin D, it really helped to reduce the risk. Vitamin E, it's not antiviral function in itself, but it plays an important role in protecting the lung and the liver. So it reacts quickly with free radicals that produce that can produce inflammation in the body. And so sources of vitamin E are sunflower seeds, almonds, avocados, spinach, butternut squash, kiwi, broccoli, olive oil, trout, shrimp. Is selenium. So selenium is, I think we talked a little bit about it, how it's important for thyroid function, and also a deficiency can decrease immunity and increase the pathogenicity of the virus. You also can find smaller amounts of the selenium in like dairy products and whole grains, but it's a smaller amount, and sometimes it's a variable depending on the soil and what type of soil the plants grew in and the animal's diet. So, but usually Brazil nuts, seafood, organ meats are more consistently at higher levels of selenium. Zinc. Zinc is important, of course. There's one patient of mine who had a friend who worked in the infectious disease sector, and they said that the COVID virus actually is vulnerable to zinc. So it's important to make sure that you're getting enough zinc in your diet, and or take a supplement to help protect the immune system. Helps to reduce the chance of having respiratory tract infection, and oysters, beef, crab, lobster. I put a picture of the seafood in the background. I don't know if you guys can tell, but it's because like the selenium, zinc, those you tend to find those in like seafood types of food. So if you don't eat animal meat, at least hopefully if you can have some seafood, that will help you get your selenium and zinc in the diet. And protein. So protein is another one. It enhances the metabolism and function of your immune cells. And actually, so there's 21 total amino acids that make up protein, but there are 9 that your body cannot produce on its own. So there's 9 essential amino acids that you really have to get from your diet. Otherwise, your body cannot produce it on its own. And meat, poultry, eggs, dairy, and soy, they contain all the 9 essential amino acids. Legumes and beans, nuts and seeds, those foods, they don't contain all the 9 essential amino acids. So if you're strict vegetarian or you don't like to eat soy, then you should try to get supplementation so that you're making sure that you're getting all the essential amino acids in your diet. One popular supplement that people take is the whey protein, or it's the undenatured whey protein. Ideally, it should be grass-fed. So that's one good source of protein that contains all the 9 essential amino acids. Some people don't like to take the whey protein because of the dairy component in it, but so if not, you can take a supplement. So for example, Pure Encapsulations has an amino acid supplement that has the 9 essential amino acids. That's a company that makes hypoallergenic supplements. And so, okay, so I was just going to quickly talk about the TCM way to treat, to kind of help with preventative care and also help your immune system. And you may not know what all these herbs are, but I'm just going to kind of talk about it a little bit. These are all herbs that you can probably get through like either Amazon or certain herb companies, or if you go to a Chinese supermarket, you can get these as well. So there's a TCM herbal prevention formula that the hospitals in Hubei where the coronavirus started, where there's a formula that they used for a lot of the staff and the people there to help prevent getting sick. And one of the main formulas is a modified of the Yuping Feng, which is called Jade Windscreen formula. And so some of the herbs in that formula that are important are the astragalus, which we kind of know as a qi tonifying herb. And astragalus has multiple functions. So in Chinese medicine, it tonifies the qi. So we say it helps tonify your energy, your overall vital energy. And so from a Western medicine viewpoint, they're finding that it acts almost like an adaptogenic type of herb. It's an adaptogenic herb, and it also has very strong anti-inflammatory, immune-modulating function. A lot of patients who are going through chemo, for example, they oftentimes give the astragalus to the patient because it helps to ameliorate the side effects of the chemo. It can actually help to increase your white blood cells, and it's really beneficial for the immune system. And as you know, patients who are going through chemo, a lot of times because the chemo drugs, they actually oftentimes the patient's white blood cells get so low that they're at risk for infection. So a lot of times we will put Huang Qi and other types of herbs in their formula to help support their immune system and increase their white blood cell count. So astragalus is a very important herb for prevention. Another 2 herbs that are in the formula are, in Chinese we call them Jin Hua and Lian Chao. So that's honeysuckle and forsythia flower. Honeysuckle just comes from a plant. It's kind of, both of those herbs are bitter cold herbs. And when they used together, they actually found that they exert antiviral effect against the influenza virus. So usually as a preventative formula, we often give those 2 herbs in the formula. Last thing is, there's herbs in the formula that help to support your digestive function. In Chinese medicine, we call it spleen qi, help support your spleen and stomach energy channels. So that's the huoxiang and the peilan. The huoxiang is also actually called patchouli, basically, and peilan is another herb, but both of those herbs are acrid aromatic herbs that help to clear summer heat and transform dampness in the intestines. So if you have like candida, bloating, a lot of distension, discomfort in the stomach, you have diarrhea during the summer, those 2 herbs are really beneficial. And in a way, it kind of goes back to the whole, taking care of your gut to support your immune system. So if your gut is healthy and happy, your immune system is going to be doing much better as well. Of course, things that you don't want to eat, we all know, like sugar, refined foods, oily, greasy foods, salty processed foods, alcohol, caffeine, excess meat, baked goods. So all those things are not good for your immune system, especially patients who, for example, diabetic patients are at higher risk for getting the cytokine inflammatory reaction because they already have this kind of sensitive inflammation in the body, but also the high sugar level, infection loves sugar, basically. So you want to really stay away from sugar when you're fighting something. Okay, so there's different stages from TCM point of view. There's different stages that people go through when you have a cold or a flu, right? So the early stage, you might have a little bit of chills, fever, like chills, kind of achiness, a little bit itchy, scratchy throat, and so we call this the kind of the wind cold symptoms. For these symptoms, you can have more like ginger, green onions, garlic, perilla leaf, chicken soup. So these things can help to kind of disperse they have a dispersing function in the body, and they help to get rid of wind cold symptoms in the body. So you can make like ginger, green onion tea. The perilla leaf is actually, I don't know if you ever go to a Japanese restaurant and you eat the sushi, there's a green colored leaf that comes with the food, that's the perilla leaf. And besides helping to, it has like anti-parasite function, but it's also really good when you're fighting a wind cold. At the beginning of a cold, you can make a tea out of it. If you go to like a Japanese supermarket, you'll definitely be able to find that particular leaf. And so in regards to chicken soup, there's a lot of research that shows that chicken soup is very beneficial when you're fighting a cold. And so I don't want to go into too much detail here, but basically it helps to kind of alleviate the symptoms associated with the cold and helps to thin the mucus as well. Now, if you start to have like a sore throat, which is a little bit different, you start to have a sore throat, you feel kind of hot, you start to have maybe a little bit of a fever or chills, that's when it starts to get more into a wind heat stage. And so if you feel more heat symptoms, then things like Asian pear, mint or peppermint, the honeysuckle, which you talked about earlier, mulberry leaf, chrysanthemum flower, celery and lemon juice. Oh, I'm not sure what that Japanese is for, but the daikon, mung beans, kudzu root, chicken soup, sage, thyme, those are all good for like wind heat symptoms. I would say the sage and the thyme, you can also have it for wind cold. So, all these particular herbs have a more cooling effect on the body and help to clear heat from the lungs, and also have a dispersing wind heat function in the body. So you can try to have those teas made out of those made out of those particular herbs. There's a traditional formula that they use in the hospitals, and this is just one of the formulas. There's a whole bunch of other formulas, but this is one of the signature formulas at the beginning stages of when you're catching a cold, but it's starting to become, you're starting to get into your body, and you're starting to get a sore throat. And that's the Taiga Jiejitang, which is the bupleurum and kudzu decoction to release the muscle layer. So it contains the kudzu root, skullcap root, which I talked about earlier. That's the huangqin, that's good for the damp heat. And bupleurum is an herb that helps to vent heat from the body, and also it harmonizes the interior with the exterior. So when things are in the muscle layer and you're getting alternating chills and fever, the bupleurum is a good, important herb to put in the formula. Okay, so then we have the next stage where if a person doesn't get better and the pathogen becomes even deeper into the body, then it starts to obstruct the lungs and affect the lungs. So that's when you have the yellow-green mucus, chest stuff, the chest feels tight or hot, like heat in the chest or oppression in the chest, have really trouble breathing, that's the stage where they may have to put you on ventilator. You know, this is more severe. So of course you do want to get Western medicine treatment, but at the same time, these are some of the formulas that they would have in China, they had the patients taking at the same time that they were getting the Western medicine treatment. So you can still have the same kind of like herbs that you can make at home. So those are the same from when you had the wind heat. But these are just some of the, you know, traditional formulas that we use when you have the damp heat or heat obstructing the lungs. That's when it's deeper into the system. So you don't have to know what these are, but I just, you know, mentioning them here. So, but there's like, for example, the Oriental wormwood is one of the components in one of the decoctions where they've actually found that it has antibacterial, antiparasitic, anti-fever, antiviral properties. That particular herb, oftentimes we use it for patients who have jaundice or elevated liver enzymes, for example. Okay. Almost done here, I think. And of course, then you have the recovery stage. So for patients who were recovering from the COVID virus, these are some of the formulas that we give them. If, you know, a patient has gone through all the different stages, at this point, they may not necessarily have a cough anymore, but they may have still like a lingering dry cough, feeling thirsty all the time because all the fluids in their body have just been like completely destroyed, right, by the virus. So at that point, we have to nourish the yin and nourish the qi in the body again. So there's two traditional forms that we give. It's the Shashen Mai Dong Tang and the Shenlin Bai Zhu San, which the first formula helps to nourish the lung and stomach yin. It helps to clear the lung heat. And the second formula helps to strengthen your digestive function, helps stop diarrhea if you have diarrhea. And so it ties back to the whole gut and immune connection. And so by strengthening your digestion, your body's going to be able to absorb nutrients better. You're going to be able to, you know, your energy will get better. And then the Shashen Mai Dong Tang, it helps to kind of clear heat from the lungs. It'll help with the dry cough, help to nourish the fluids again. And then lastly, these are just some of the kind of general advice, TCM advice. So things to eat during the recovery. So usually we don't want patients eating too much salty, sweet, strong tasting foods. It's better to have more bland, spleen nourishing foods. And when I say sweet, I don't mean like sweet sugary, but sweet as in, we consider like, for example, beans, azuki beans, rice, we consider sweet types of foods. But they're all, and so rice porridge is actually probably one of the most gentle things that your body can handle after you've had a long, like a febrile type of disease, illness. And so usually traditionally we make the porridge with the lily bulb, which you see the picture on the top of the screen, that's the dried lily bulb, which you can get in the Asian supermarket. And you just have to soak it for 30 minutes and then cook it with your rice porridge. And that has a cooling effect that helps to nourish the lung yin. So it's good for the lungs and clears the heat and it's good for cough. And then you have the goji berries, which also help to nourish the lung yin and help with, like, if you're feeling thirsty. And then you could also make the porridge with the mountain yam and the red azuki beans, which help to more tonify the spleen function. So depending on what a patient's symptoms are, you can make either formula depending on what they need, right? So, and there's a lot of recipes out there, you can Google it, in terms of if you're trying to find a recipe for like azuki bean porridge, for example. Lastly, there's a kind of a folk remedy that we use in Chinese medicine, and that's the steamed Asian pear. So we have a YouTube video on our TCM Healing Center website where I teach you how to make the steamed pear with the honey and ginger. So if anyone's interested, you can always go to the YouTube channel. But the steamed pear in general is good for also to help with cough, especially if you have a dry cough. It's good for nourishing the lung yin energy. And the honey also has, helps to soothe the throat and also good for coughing. If you can't find a steamed pear, you can use a Bartlett pear as well. So that's kind of like a folk remedy. And I think that's it. Okay, the end.